Nobody would ever buy a house that was built without a blueprint, but too often we let our futures unfold without one. We end up being a little more haphazard, sometimes aimless.
A lot of times people don't see their future as being a real thing. When you get to be my age, you realize it is.
We have a fuzzy relationship with our future. Sometimes we treat our future selves as if that person's a stranger. We make decisions in the moment that have consequences, but it's almost like, okay, future Chad has to deal with that.
A lot of people think that they need to write their own plan for their finances, and they end up never doing it.
What happens with planning for the future is we know we need to have a plan, but it's not urgent. So it's easy to push that off to next week, and that becomes next month, that becomes next year, and pretty soon we're 55 years old, we want to retire in 5 years, and we don't have a plan.
Expert advice, practical tips, real-life stories. Have less stress, more time, and more money in your business. Welcome to the Cash Flow Contractor.
Martin, it's good to see you.
Sure.
We talk
Good to see you,
lot.
man. You're looking older. Are you like
I am.
older?
I had a birthday this week.
Yeah.
So thank you for recognizing. I'm sure it shows.
Well, we're not telling people what week it was, so you're not going to get a bunch of presents from Amazon and people.
I don't know that I'd get much presents anyways, but no, it's good to be here. 34 now. I'm posting about the 34 lessons I've learned in life so far on LinkedIn and Twitter, if anybody wants to follow. So it's fun. 2 days ago was, yesterday was hurry is the thief of joy. And the day before was our greatest burdens come from work not done, essentially. So yeah, just a lot of different lessons. So it's fun.
So
What were you doing when you were
actually
34?
Well, I think I was shoeing the horses. I remember one of our plow horses dropped a shoe and I had to go. That was
Wow.
when I was 34, what was I doing? I was running grain elevators in Nebraska.
Wow. I'm
Seven
going to keep
grade
asking this
elevator.
question every year, Martin, because I think I did last year. And eventually I'm going to get to the point where you got an IBM and computers were introduced into the workplace.
Actually, that was 75. Yeah, we got it wasn't an IBM, it was an Interdata, but
There
it
you
had
go.
640 meg of RAM, two
Cool.
giant tape drives, and every bit of software, every single bit of software you wrote. You just
Wow.
got a machine. Not I,
That's
but
cool.
we had two programmers doing our books. Anyway,
Well, I don't know how to segue that into our guest today. I'll try. A lot of people think that they need to write their own plan for their finances, and
There you
they end
go.
up never doing it, just like I would never build my own software. But we've got Chad today. Chad, thanks for joining the show all the way from Alaska. How are you?
Khalil, it's a pleasure to be here. Martin, thank you both for having me, and looking for the opportunity to encourage your audience and educate them and help them clarify their path towards the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I don't know how I do that segue, but I do find that a lot of people try to come up with their own plan. We talk about plans in terms of the business. We talk about plans in terms of building systems and hiring, all that kind of stuff. We don't talk a lot about the investing side of it, of actually building wealth, not only in your company, but outside your company as well. So yeah, we're going to talk about a lot of different things today, but the main thing that you love to harp on is finding your target number. What does that mean?
Well, first of all, nobody would ever buy a house that was built without a blueprint. But too often we let our futures unfold without one. We end up being a little more haphazard, sometimes aimless. What ends up happening is we end up being reactive rather than proactive. And there's a world of difference between somebody who is proactively building on a strategy towards a specific outcome and somebody who is just collecting investments or collecting materials over their lifetime. And a lot of people aren't even doing that. They're not doing anything for the future. But we want people to be proactive and strategically building. And it's funny that you guys started this off on this kind of this age conversation.
Yeah.
We were just watching some NFL games over the weekend, and my kids were watching this kicker who's like 39 years old, And they're like, why is he even out there? Like, he's so old, he needs to retire. And I'm like, I don't know why I don't get it either. I'm thinking like, when this guy was born, I was already 5. So like, I'm older than everybody out on the field now. But I think that's what happens with planning for the future is this, you just said it, like we know we need to have a plan, Khalil, for the future, but it's not urgent. So it's easy to push that off to next week, and that becomes next month, that becomes next year, and pretty soon we're 55 years old, we want to retire in 5 years, and we don't have a plan. So to wrap up that long-winded answer, it's coming up with a strategic target for where you want to be, what you want your life to look like, and then reverse engineering that into today, so you can line up your actions, your choices, and behaviors with where you want to be in the future.
What you just said about postponing it and later, one of the things that we like to say is oil change and fill your car with gas. Everybody knows you need to change the oil in your car, but not right now. You can get away with not right now. You're running out of gas. I don't care what you're doing. You got to go get gas. And how do you instill that urgency? Because a lot of times people don't see their future as being a real thing. When you get to my age, you realize it is.
Well, I guess a couple things on that, Martin. I mean, number one, I think so often in life, and this isn't just in finance, it's in health, it's in building a business, it's in relationships, we often let the urgent take place of the important. But the other side of it is, and I love what you just said, is I'm going to paraphrase a little bit, but we have a fuzzy relationship with our future. It's almost like sometimes we treat our future selves as if that person's a stranger. We make decisions in the moment that have consequences, a ripple effect, but it's almost like, okay, future Chad has to deal with that. Future Martin that's somebody else. That's not me. Jerry Seinfeld, clearly you may be too young to remember his show, but Jerry Seinfeld had a hilarious clip about morning guy and nighttime guy, and how nighttime guy is always screwing over morning guy. And it's funny because everybody can relate. Everybody can relate to doing something in the moment. You ate the second piece of cheesecake and now you got heartburn and a stomach ache, or you slept in and now you're scrambling to get on work on time and it's stressful and you don't have time to stop for gas and you're not sure if you're going to make it because you're running late and all these different things. And sometimes we make decisions for the future that harm our future, and that future is only 10, 15 minutes or maybe a few hours ahead. So we're talking about how do you make decisions that are 15, 20 years ahead. That's a lot more difficult. So I think part of this, guys, is creating a closer relationship with our future. Then it's easier to serve our future selves instead of stealing from our future selves.
So how do you do that? How do you create a better relationship with your future self that's 15 years away? What's the process of even thinking about that?
I think the first thing is imagining what you want that to look like. It's giving somebody the freedom to dream a little bit. And for a lot of your audience, they're running a business and the day-to-day is so intense sometimes. Like you're just worried about, what is the run up to payroll next Tuesday, and you've got this big project and deadlines and things like that. And it's getting through the moment. And we forget to sit back and say, well, where's all this energy going? What do I want my life to look like in 10, 15 years? Who do I want to be spending it with? What do I want to look like? I mean, what's my health going to be like? And this might sound, a little bit philosophical, but it's important. We have to step out of the moment and work on our future. Step out of the present, work on our future, and imagine what we want that life to look like. And everybody listening had to do this with a business plan at some point. You set these goals, and then you base your daily, weekly, monthly actions to hit some of those targets. But we don't do that with our lives in general. So it's first coming up with a long-term vision. And just like a blueprint, this is flexible. So, when my wife and I, we built a house about 6 years ago, and we changed so many things. And in fact, the joke is the only thing that survived the building process was the flooring. Everything else got changed. The counters, the cabinets, even the dimensions. A lot of the rooms shifted. We changed our garage layout. The only thing that survived was the flooring. But we always had a blueprint. We always had something guiding our decisions as we walked through the process. So It's coming up with a long-term vision, Khalil, and then it's creating a blueprint, something that reverse engineers the process. Because even though that long-term goal for our house changed, we always had a plan that we could align ourselves with, say, okay, here's what we're doing today and this week and this month. Is this in line with where we want to be in the future? So it does a couple things. Number one, it takes a big goal and it breaks it down into small bite-sized chunks. The other thing it does is it keeps the present and the future equally relevant. And let me give you a financial example of what I mean by that. So let's say that we've got a really cool tool called the Find Your Number or Identify Your Target is kind of the idea, but the Find Your Number exercise, so people can identify their personal financial independence target, the amount of invested assets they'll need to live comfortably without producing their own paycheck anymore. And what that does is a couple things. Number one, it gives you a strategic target, but it can also be a little bit overwhelming because it's usually a pretty large number. For most people, it's going to be in the millions. And that can, again, seem like my future problem. If I need $3 million of invested capital to retire comfortably, it can be overwhelming. That's future Chad's problem. But if we reverse engineer that to where somebody is today and we realize that, okay, yeah, you're going to need $3 million to retire comfortably. And again, I'm making that number up. But based on where you are today, that means you need to save an extra $500 every paycheck on top of what you're already doing. Okay, so that might be a stretch, but at least I can wrap my head around that more than what does $3 million or $5 million look like. And now every day matters. I'm not so worried about having $3 million invested by the time I'm 60. I've got to figure out how to carve out an extra $500 from every paycheck. So every single day is now relevant. It's not a 30-year problem or even a 15-year problem. It's a day-to-day problem. And I've got to look at how are my behaviors and habits, even in this moment, aligning with that future goal. It's really hard to do that with just a big vision of the future. That's a starting place, but you have to have something that connects that big plan with the smaller behaviors and choices on a day-to-day basis. Does that answer that question a little bit better?
Yeah. So when I'm thinking about finding my number, I'm thinking about the behaviors that I want to have. What age are we thinking here? Like when you tell people, is it 60? Is it 70? Where are we at?
So that's part of the tool. And it's coming up with what you want that number to be. And I want to pause on there for just a second, Khalil, because even though we think about retirement, I want to stretch people's perspective on that just a little bit. Think about it as a work optional lifestyle. And here's why it's so important for business owners to be doing this exercise, is because so many of us as business owners, whether you're in the construction or contracting industry or outside, is our net worth is all wrapped up in that business, which means our ability to create financial independence is very dependent on how we can structure that business to sell it to somebody else, how we can transition. Now, that is important, but I will tell you guys, it is so powerful if people have wealth and income sources outside of their business, because now they have an ability to step back without completely stepping out. And that's why I love this idea of a job optional or a work optional lifestyle where you're not fully retired. You just don't need your paycheck or the income from your business to live comfortably. You can flip that on from another source. So going back to your question, Khalil, what we typically encourage people to do is be aggressive with that date. And there's a slider in our tool where you can look to see how that date affects different things. But somebody may not want to stop working before 65, but to be financially independent at 58 and realize you don't have to collect a paycheck another day, you don't have to work in your business anymore, and you can step out of that. Something can happen to you and your family's going to be fine because you're financially independent. You have a job optional lifestyle. That's so powerful, even if it's years before you retire. So I encourage people to think about that. Like, what do they want that timeline to look like? And be aggressive with the financial independence. And if you hit that financial independence number, you no longer need a paycheck, but you still want to run your business, or maybe you want to switch careers, do something else, do something less stressful. Maybe you're going to volunteer, you're going to work in your church or another charitable organization. That's awesome. We don't want people to stop working. We just don't want them to have to.
Yeah. No, that's really good. So it's funny because obviously I'm 34. I've got, hopefully, fingers crossed, Lord willing, some more life ahead of me. And then we've got Martin, who's work optional right now. And
which hopefully has a little life left in front of me.
and still has a lot of life and a lot of podcasts left in front of him. No, but so we can kind of have different perspectives here. So I would love to hear from Martin, hearing this now, what, from your perspective, would you tell a 34-year-old Martin that's working grain elevators?
That you got to get your damn oil changed, get your ass in there and do it. There's an old French proverb, I'm sure, Chad, you know, but I always get people with this on a whiteboard. I just draw a circle and call it a pond, and I put a lily pad in there, and I say, if the lily pad's double every day, at what day is the pond half full? And they're all getting their calculators out and doing the square root of pi. And it's not that kind of question, guys. The day before the day the pond is half full is the day before it's full. Half of it comes on that last day.
Yeah.
And if you start a day late, that's the one you wipe off the board, not the first one,
Yeah.
the last one. And the power of time value of money and those kind of things, which were not new concepts, but they were certainly new to me when I was Khalil's age. Anyway, get started. Get started. Whatever the damn excuse is, put it to the side and get started.
So let's say, Chad, I'm obviously not a contractor, but let's say I am. And I'm like, hey, you know what? I want to be work optional at 50. I've got 16 years. And, in order for me to live my lifestyle, obviously inflation's probably, who knows where inflation's going to be at that point. But let's assuming that holds constant. I need $200,000 a year to be comfortable, to do what I want to do. So what's my next step if I've determined that in terms of that's the number I need to be receiving annually?
Well, first of all, that is exactly how you would start the process, is coming up with a timeline. So you have a date specific and then a dollar specific goal, $200,000 a year, right? And this might just be a rough estimate. People have a hard time figuring out what they're going to need every month. Now think about what they might need in the future. So here's with the tool that we'll have, and I think you guys will link this on the episode, is it adjusts for inflation. So you can think about it in today's dollars. So if we're thinking about, and I'm just going to run through some of this math in my head, and I'm not as good as I used to be on this stuff, but because we have all these cool tools and calculators I don't need to be. But if you're looking at $200,000 today, at average inflation in 16 years, that's going to be roughly $350,000. So $350,000, you're going to need probably invested assets of somewhere in the neighborhood of $5 million to produce that. Now, the beautiful thing is twofold. Number one, you need to come up with that right now. And number two, you don't have to put aside $5 million. This is where the time value of money, like Martin talked about, the growth of it, because these things do grow exponentially. But the other thing too is, I guess the third thing is, with that, as a business owner, we can figure out, based on that timeline, what you're able to invest outside of your business every month. And it may be through a 401k or a simple IRA in your business, but outside of the business entity, I should say, we can figure out that and see, well, what is your business going to need to be worth in 16 years to maybe fill any gap? So it's actually, it could be a cool beginning to a business planning tool where you can see how does my business need to be shaped 15, 20 years down the road, so I have a succession plan and I can sell that. And isn't what you think your business is worth, it's what everybody else thinks your business is going to be worth in 15 years. And just encouraging, not to take us off course too much, but encouraging the business owners on this episode that are listening right now is making sure that you have a business to sell and not a job. Because a lot of times, small business owners, we build up a job and it might be really successful, but somebody stepping in basically needs to be another version of you. They have to have the same skill sets and similar experience and things like that. And you're asking them to buy a job from you rather than a business that is self-sustaining. So that's a little bit off topic,
No, I think it's on topic. I think it's important, and it goes. We actually just talked about this. I think our last episode, Martin, in passing. But if you're planning on selling your business, then you better be building systems, and you better be removing yourself from it. At the same time, that may not be who you are, and that may not be something you want to go on the journey of hiring great people to run systems that runs without you. You enjoy your job and you want to be in it. That's fine, as long as you have a plan where you are making a lot of money, but saving a lot of it for later, and that's your exit. It's, hey, I'm going to shut down shop. Maybe I pass on at a 1 multiple to somebody else. It's not really very valuable, but it's something. But I've done a really great job of, I knew my number, I put stuff away, and I was able to, make a lot of money, but save for the future.
Well, and the other part of that too is if you do have wealth and income sources outside of your business, you can get to a point where, maybe you are 50 years old, you're getting to that point, 55, where you want to be financially independent, but you can take a step back, reduce your income, bring some other people in to help scale the business up, because you don't need to pull every dime out of your business anymore. And now, not only will they make your business more profitable, but it's just like everything else. Sometimes you got to take a step back, take 2 steps forward. So you're bringing in maybe a COO or a CFO or something like that. And not only will they make your bottom line probably healthier, but they will make your business sell at a higher multiplier. So having some of that extra wealth outside to supplement your income while you're bringing professionals in those last few years as part of your succession plan, it comes back down to freedom and flexibility. And the more freedom and flexibility you give yourself as a business owner, the more options you have when you're getting ready to sell your business.
Quick ad break to tell you a little bit about OpenPhone. If you're a contractor that has a single cell phone, you're probably inundated with text messages and phone calls, oftentimes that you can't be responsive to or that you can't answer at all. So what's the solution? You can buy another office line with Verizon or AT&T, and you can have an iPhone that is passed around from employee to employee, depending on who's on call. But what if there's a better way? What if there's a way that you can have all your phone calls recorded to go back and listen to later, transcribed with summaries so that you can get a quick glance at what happened during the phone call, and even connect it to your CRM where all your other customer information is? OpenPhone is the perfect solution because it does just that. You're able to add all the users you need to for whoever needs to have access to the lines for your company phone. And then you can also find all of the information you need at a glance with a centralized location for all phone calls and text messages with your customers. Whether it's for marketing, for sales, or for service, OpenPhone is the perfect solution for you and your team. If you're interested, we have an offer down the show notes from OpenPhone. Please click the link down the show notes, or you can see it here on your screen to be able to find more information about OpenPhone. Thanks for listening. Back to the episode.
Okay, so let's say that I've defined my number. I know what it is. I've got that target. It's gonna, I'm assuming, say, hey, this is how much monthly you need to put away to reach your target by the target number by the timeline you've set. What is the next step from there? Let's assume I've got a business savings account, a personal savings account, but I'm not doing anything else. What are some things that I need to be considering at that point?
So after you've identified where you want to be, your best estimate of where you want to be, and you've got an idea of where you are, I think that's probably the next step is clarifying where you are. What have you built so far? And if we use another metaphor, it's like, okay, I've got an idea of where my destination is. I've got to be really clear on my current location so then I can get a roadmap in between, right? So, I mean, those are the two things you need when you're punching something into like Google Maps. You need a destination and you need your starting point. So getting clear on both of those is really important. And being honest with yourself too. Like, where am I really at today? That
reminds me of, Chad, is if you don't have where you're going and you don't know your current location, it's, but hey, we're making a lot of money, or we've got a lot of revenue coming in. We're lost, but we're making great time.
Well,
Yeah.
So, okay, I got a couple of things on that. So going back to Alice in Wonderland, There's a scene in there where they're asking the Cheshire Cat, which direction should I go? And he asks, well, where do you want to be? And Alice says, well, I don't know. And he goes, well, it doesn't much matter which path you take then. And I think the tendency for the people that are listening to this show, they're more ambitious, they're harder workers, they're more driven. If you don't know where you're going and you start feeling lost, the tendency is to just go faster, to double down on everything you're already doing. And it would be like hiring an Uber driver or old school taxi, right? And they say, well, where do you want to go? And you say, I don't know, just speed it up. And it sounds silly, right? But if we don't know where we are and where we want to be, number one, we might not be going the right direction. Number two, we don't even know if we're on the right road. And a lot of people, when it comes to finances or even life in general, we're taking directions from people who aren't on the same path. They don't want the same things that we do. Their directions aren't wrong. I mean, sometimes they are. I mean, everybody on TikTok and Instagram is an expert now. You have people that are flat broke giving financial advice, but that's a whole other issue. But even for people who have a plan, they have their own blueprint, but they're not building your financial house. You're dancing to somebody else's music and wondering why you keep tripping over your feet because your directions aren't based on your destination and your starting place. So step number 2, get really clear on where you are today. And for some people, they're going to have to start putting out some of the fires in their life before they start building. And what I mean by that is getting on a budget, eliminating debt. You wouldn't start building your dream house in the middle of a forest fire. And if you have a life where you have a lot of debt, a lot of consumer debt, maybe even some business debt, you want to reduce your liabilities before you start building, because those liabilities can consume what you're building as you're trying to create it. So for a lot of people, that next step after clarifying where they are today is actually eliminating debt, getting their budget tuned up.
And let's walk through that.
Yes.
What are some of the most typical things that you see need to be cleaned up from a business owner's perspective that they're not even thinking about or they don't worry about?
Okay, so I'm gonna go, if it's all right, a little bit broader than that. Then maybe we can go business, because a lot of it's just basic lifestyle stuff. So one of the questions I often get asked on podcasts is, well, is there a secret? What's the number one principle for building long-term sustainable wealth? And I always tell them, you're not gonna like this answer. And they're like, well, okay, well, what is it? It's living within your means. And people are like, okay, that's really simple. Like, our listeners know that. I'm like, yeah, but they're not doing it. So
they're not doing it.
It's kind of like saying, well, what do I need to do to get in better shape? Well, you need to eat less and move more. Okay, I already know that. Yeah, but you're not doing it. So, I mean, I've got a McDonald's on one side of our office and there's a Subway over here. Like, there's people go into
lucky
those.
you.
Yeah, people go, like, there's always a line out the back door. It's breakfast time here in Alaska right now. And everybody goes in there knowing that, yeah, this is probably not a great decision for my future, but they do it anyway. So it isn't enough to know. We have to execute. And one of the things I try to tell my kids is education without execution is merely entertainment. If you are learning things without implementing them in your life, you're not going to get much benefit. So to live within your means, it sounds, okay, yeah, that's obvious. But if you have no margin to put towards the future, you can't build. The other part of that is if let's just say, clearly your example, $200,000 a year. If that is the net profit you're drawing from your business and you're living off of $200,000, not only is there no margin to build outside of your business, but number two, you're requiring everything you're bringing in to live comfortably. If you can trim your budget down to $150,000, you can still have a pretty comfortable life, but it's done two things for you. Number one, you have $50,000 now that you can put towards the future, and you don't have to replace your entire income to live comfortably. So that's kind of the philosophical aspect of this. The practical aspect, okay, where do we look for cuts? And a lot of times, there's all these apps out there that will look at how many subscriptions you have and things like that, and you can nickel and dime some stuff, but for some people, we need to make it looking big cuts. I've met people who are making $70,000, $80,000 a year, and they drive a $120,000 truck. Like that's not going to work, guys. So I think one of the big things is vehicle expenses, whether that's in your business or outside. car loans are so ubiquitous now. I've had people tell me that they're debt free other than their house and their car. I'm like, well, that's still debt. Like, well, it's a good kind of debt. Well, it's kind of like saying, well, I've got cancer, but it's a really treatable kind of cancer, so not a big deal. Well, at the end of the day, you still have cancer. So debt is like cancer to your budget and to building your freedom. You start, if you're in debt, and I don't care if it's quote unquote good debt, or I guess we should say more respectable debt, like college loans, student loans, business debt, real estate debt. At the end of the day, it's still a liability. So it might be better than credit card debt, but it can still destroy your financial future if you let it. So getting really clear about what are the debts, what do I owe, because it doesn't matter who you're paying at the beginning of the month if you're paying somebody else besides you.
Yeah.
And for people who have debt, that's what you begin every single month playing from behind, because you're paying the bank, you're paying the car loan company, you're paying whomever before you start paying yourself, your future self. I believe paying God first. That's my own personal thing. But
yeah, it's great.
But I don't believe starting every month by paying Bank of America. That's not where I want the first fruits to go. But if you're religious, if that's important to you, paying God first, but then paying yourself and paying your future self, that should be at the top. So I think eliminating personal consumer debt, even before looking at the business, can be really powerful, because how you live your day-to-day life, the habits you have there, will affect and have a ripple effect into how you run your business.
Absolutely.
Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think a lot of times you have to pull so much money out of the business because you're actually just funding your lifestyle, when that money could really go to work for you inside the business to be able to hire the better person, to be able to implement, the software that you're putting off that would actually allow you to be more efficient and to make more revenue and get a better bottom line at the end of the day. So it totally makes sense that if you're living a lavish lifestyle when you can't really afford it, it's only going to hurt the business, which is really your biggest leverage to be able to earn money and get it into a retirement account at some point, right? So makes total sense. Okay, so let's say we've cleaned that up. Hey, Chad, I know my number. I know my timeline. I know exactly where I am today. And I've got my lifestyle figured out. My budget is, tight. I've got it together. It's clear. Where do I go from here?
In this step, the step we just talked about can kind of be done simultaneously with what I'm going to be talking about too. And it's the hope, or the strategy is, as you're paying down debt, as you're cleaning up debt, then you roll that debt payment into the next debt payment. So for example, let's say let's say you got 2 cars. Okay. That's your only debt. So you're going to put all your effort and energy into paying down probably the smallest loan first. If you've got a truck you owe $20,000 on and a truck you owe $40,000 on, we're going to put all our effort and energy on the $20,000 truck, and we'll pay the minimums on the 40. And then once that's paid off, we'll roll all the extra energy and effort from the first payment into the second. So once you get that first payment, and whether it's a truck or a medical bill or a student loan payment, you get that first debt paid off, you can then snowball that first payment plus all the extra into the second. When you get that first domino to fall, they start falling pretty quickly.
And this is before putting any money in the market. This is before going into index funds or whatever.
Yep. If you have consumer debt, now, so for some folks, they're going to already have money in investments, and we're going to talk about that in just a second. But for folks who are in debt, they're trying to clean that up. Dave Ramsey calls it the snowball method. It works phenomenally well. It's like pushing a car. It's hard to get the momentum started. Once you get the car rolling, then you don't have to work as hard. But just encouraging your listeners that those first 2 or 3 months, as you're trying to create new habits, you're trying to get that first debt paid off. That's where a lot of your energy and effort is going to go. But once you start getting momentum, it doesn't seem quite as arduous. It's not quite as grueling as it was to get that car rolling at first. So Now you've built up this debt snowball. You're paying your debt off in chunks now. You're not nickel and diming it. You're taking good, healthy chunks. When that debt is paid off, those same payments that used to go to your bank or your credit card company can now go towards your future. So you've already kind of isolated a chunk of your budget that isn't part of your day-to-day. It used to be funding your past. It used to be funding the things that you paid for or that you purchased in the past but didn't have the money to pay for, like the TV, the truck, the college, or whatever. Now they can pay your future. And this is where that financial number is really important, because we can know pretty much exactly what you're going to need to put towards your future every single month. And this is really powerful on two things. Number one, just having that clarity is really nice. If I need to save $1,200 a month to hit my future goals, whatever the number is, even if that's a stretch for me right now, at least I know. Like I know what I have to accomplish. And I think for a lot of people listening to this podcast, they're the types of people, if you give them a goal and target, even if it's hard, but they know what they have to do, they're going to figure out eventually how to make it happen. You give them a spot up on the top of a mountain and say, that's where we're going. Here's what it's going to take. It's going to be hard. Not everybody, a lot of people aren't going to make the journey, but they're going to figure out a way to get there. The other really cool part about this is it allows you to live more present, because this isn't saving as much as possible. It isn't living off of beans and rice, selling a kid or a kidney to try to get to financial independence. That's a joke, by the way. Don't sell your kids. I have 6, so if anybody wants an extra, or anybody wants one. But you have a finite, tangible number that you need to save every single month, and that's a win. So when you hit that number, you still might be a ways off from financial independence. You might be a ways off from your long-term target, but this month or this week was a win. You did what you need to do to serve your future self. So you can live a little bit. You can put money aside for vacation. You can put money aside for your kids' college. You take somebody out to eat. You can help somebody who's in need, because there's a finite amount of money that you need to put aside every single month. And then the other part of this is how you actually invest. It's the ingredients, it's the tools in your toolbox that should be based off of you and your goals. And a lot of people, the number one, it's interesting because we're talking about targets, right? Target dates, target incomes. But the most common fund in a 401k is a target date fund. And it drives me nuts, guys, because there's really nothing targeted about it. It just lumps everybody together in a single age group and says, this is how you should invest, regardless of where you are today, regardless of your current financial status, regardless of your retirement timeline, regardless of your long-term goals. It's just, we're going to mix all these ingredients, we'll give them to you. It's a one size fits all, which means one size fits nobody. So not only does your financial plan need to be customized to you, your investment strategy, which is dictated by the financial plan, just as if you got a blueprint for building a building, that will dictate your tools and tactics. You don't go out and decide your tactics and buy a bunch of tools and materials and then figure out what you're trying to build. You figure out what you're trying to build first. That process dictates the tools and strategies. But now you look at, we know what we're trying to build. We know how much we need to save, how much debt we need to pay off, all these different things. What are the tools we're going to use to build towards the future? What are the investments I need personally to beat my financial goals, and getting your investments aligned with your long-term future? And that part is obviously vital, because even if you have a good plan, but you're not funding it with the right tools, the right ingredients, you're not going to get to where you want to go.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to talk more about some of those ingredients. But before we do, you had mentioned paying off consumer debt. The topic that everybody also wants to include in this, or debate, I guess, is the mortgage. And I'll even just use my example specifically. We're fortunate to not be in any consumer debt besides our mortgage. And our mortgage is at a 2.4 interest rate because we were really lucky to get a house in 2021, beginning of 2021, and the rates were great. And so we've got about, I think, $200,000 left on our note. what do I do? Hey, I'm going to snowball and really attack that 2.4% interest rate, or no, pay maybe a little bit more than my monthly payment is and start putting some in the market? What do you do in that situation?
Okay, I love that question, and so my answer on a broad scale is it depends, but let me give you the principles that we're looking at. So when you have, and I don't include the mortgage and consumer. When I'm talking about consumer debt, I'm thinking, car loans, credit card loans. It could even be like electronics and stuff like that, even student loans. But your mortgage would be separate from that. So here's what we recommend for people is once they have all that other stuff, even if your mortgage was higher, because right now people complain about like 6% rates, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
I remember growing up in the 80s when my dad was getting involved in real estate, and you had 16, 18% mortgages. So
yeah,
I get it. 6 is a lot more than 2, but it's a lot less than 16. So even if you have a larger mortgage payment, and clearly that's awesome that yours is so low, make sure you're on track with retirement first. So once you get the consumer debt paid off, you get a little bit of emergency fund built up, that's where we want to get aligned with our long-term target. So we're going to start investing aggressively, start paying our future selves. Now, we might pay extra towards the mortgage simultaneously, but if my goal requires me to save $2,000 a month, I am consistently saving $2,000 a month in investments before I'm adding anything extra to my mortgage. Now, if I've been doing that for maybe a year and I've got a pretty good habit going, I'm on track. I'm on track for hitting my long-term financial target. That's when you look at maybe putting extra towards the mortgage. And a number that we'll often give people is kind of aligning it with their financial independence number. Is if you want to be financially independent by 55, even if you have a super low mortgage and you're on track for your investments, then maybe spend some time figuring out how much you need to save every single month to get your mortgage paid off at least by 55. And for some people, they might be on a 15-year. That might happen naturally, but ideally, you don't want to be taking a mortgage of any type of scale. Ideally, no mortgage on your permanent residence into retirement. But to your question, is make sure when you're at this point, consumer debt's eliminated, that we're on track with the building side of things, kind of the offense. We've played enough defense. We're going to build our offense, get on track with our long-term target, and then see if we have some money left over to throw towards the mortgage.
Okay, good. Okay, very cool. So if I've got my target, let's focus on the target. And if I'm on pace with my target, leftovers might be able to be applied to that mortgage, but they could also be applied to my rainy day fund. They could also be applied to, I want to do upgrades to the home. Yep. And I can have a budget or a savings account for that. Okay.
And this is what, sorry, just to interrupt real quick. And this is where it becomes very, very personal. Like for somebody hypothetically with 6 kids, like, okay, college savings is going to be in there probably somewhere too. So, but we want to make sure on that specifically, you're on track for your goals before your kids are on track for theirs. But this is where you have now some extra freedom to decide, I've got all the big things on track. What do I want to put a little bit extra emphasis and energy into? It might be paying down the mortgage. It might be building up a house renovation fund. Could be a lot of different things. And this is where, again, it goes back to flexibility. When you get some momentum going on your plan, you have more options, not less.
Yeah. Okay. So we're still on the personal side. I want to get into some of the ingredients that we mentioned earlier, but really quick, I want to pivot to the business really quick. So on the business side, we've talked about this several times with our audience about having a cash reserve. Mm-hmm. And we've always said 3 months of your expenses, right? So if you can have cash liquid that is 3 months of expenses, including paying yourself, that's huge. What do we do with that cash though? Is it good to have it just in my business savings that's earning 0.1% interest? Or is there a high yield savings account that we should be looking at for that cash reserve?
So I think 3 months is a minimum. In more
Yeah.
volatile industries, I think it's okay to have more, I guess. I mean, most business owners don't have 3 months. If you have 3 months, you're doing better than
Yeah.
most. Don't feel bad if you have more. And this is coming from an investment guy, and I'm saying no. Build up your cash reserves first. And to your question, yes, it should be in a high yield savings account. So there's money market accounts out there, and I can't give specific recommendations in a venue like this. But just say right now, as of this recording, you should be able to find reputable money market accounts that give you north of 3%. And what a money market does is it's not going to be your operating account, because there's usually a
Right.
limit to how many transactions you can have. It's just a little bit more clunky. But that money market account or that high yield savings account, it funnels into your checking account, your business checking account. So the money is easily accessible. It's not your operating account, but it can
Yeah.
easily be attached. But that's where your emergency fund or your buffer, however you want to look at it, that's where that would sit. Because if you've got $50,000, $100,000 sitting there, even at 3%, if you don't need to get to it because business is going well, I mean that's not an insignificant amount of interest that you're going to gain. But the biggest thing is not so much the interest, but it's the access. It's having that money available to infuse into your business if things go sour.
Yeah. Okay. Really cool. Okay. So that's one thing with the cash. Go back to the ingredients on the personal side. What should we be looking at? We're following our plan. Obviously, there's a lot of different personalized ingredients that we should have, but what's available to us and what should we consider?
So first of all, consider income, not principal. And here's what I mean by that. Financial independence doesn't come from your net worth. Now, it's important to have targets around that. We talked about that already. That's how our tool is designed. But your financial independence, listeners, comes from your cash flow. It comes from your income. When you're retired, whether you still own your business or not, maybe you're still working part-time, you're kind of on the periphery, maybe you sold it, whatever. You're not going to bring your investment account or your 401k to Costco to buy groceries. You bring your income. So focus on the income that your investments will generate when you need it, rather than the principal that it's worth today. That's the number you see in your statement. And there's a period earlier this year where we had a pretty rapid decline in the value of market investments across the board. So, somebody's 401k might be looking like a 301k for a few weeks. And sometimes it lasts for a few months, sometimes even multiple years. That's okay, because that's when the best companies in the world go on sale. Now, it's not easy. If it was easy, people would stay invested, and they don't. And here's the problem is when markets are volatile, people often sell at the worst times. They sell when there's storm clouds on the horizon, everybody's getting wet, everybody's scared, and they're selling their companies, the companies they own, for cents on the dollar, instead of buying more of those great companies at cents on the dollar. So we believe, and again, I'm painting with a broad brush here, but as a general rule, we want to own companies and not lend to them. And what I mean by that is when you have a mutual fund, you literally have the opportunity to buy some of the best companies across the globe. Now, you own small snippets. I was talking to my kids about this the other day. This doesn't mean you get to walk into McDonald's and start ordering everybody around, or walk into Bass Pro and start pulling fishing poles off the shelves. Like, you own fractions of these companies, but you get to join in the success of these companies. A lot of folks migrate towards bonds as they get older. And the problem with that is bonds are just lending, you're buying debt. We've already talked a lot about debt, not great for your future. Don't buy somebody else's debt to build your future. And the problem that goes back to what you mentioned earlier, Khalil, on inflation. Bonds, CDs, those are fixed income. We can't take fixed income into a growing or an increasing cost world and not expect problems. Like nobody is ever going to
Yeah.
hire somebody saying, hey, Martin, I've got this great position for you. I think you're perfect. You're going to be a great fit. Come and work for us. And we promise we will not give you a raise for the next 20 years. You'd be like, what? That's supposed to be a selling point? It sounds ridiculous, but people plan their retirements that exact same way. They start moving more and more of their money into fixed income sources like bonds, fixed annuities, CDs, and they're facing an increasing cost retirement with fixed income. It's like bringing a knife to a gunfight. So you have to own companies, but own them in a diversified manner. And I'm shotgunning this stuff at you guys, so have me back
Yeah.
up if you need me to.
Sure.
But here's the idea of diversification. You're never going to own enough of any one thing to make a killing. You're never going to own enough of any one thing to get killed by it if it goes south or goes sour on you. So here's a metaphor that I often use is it's thinking of planting this orchard. I like the orchard because number one, orchards take time. They don't grow overnight. It takes a long time before you start seeing some of those seeds sprout and eventually producing fruit. But going back to our idea of focusing on income, not principle, I'm not going to focus on how much my trees are worth. My focus is how much income can they produce when I'm ready to be financially independent. The other part of it is I don't have just a dozen or even 50 huge trees in my orchard. I have thousands of medium-sized trees. So if one industry or one geographical location or something like that goes south, I'm not dependent on that. And if we stay on this orchard metaphor, I have many different species of trees that are going to respond to environments different, just like in your 401k. You shouldn't have all your companies lumped together in a single industry or even a single geographic location or even a single country, because there's a tendency for all those companies to kind of ebb and flow together. They kind of fly in formation. I don't want all my trees coming in and out of season at the same time. So I'm going to have trees that are going to act and react differently as environments around us change, as the climate even adjusts, metaphorically speaking. And that's the idea of investing in a diversified manner. So yeah, this isn't get rich quick. It's building wealth slowly. So you have a little bit of money in a lot of different things. And for most people, mutual funds are a fantastic way to do it. And you could be ultra wealthy. They work. You could be 22 years old listening to this. You don't own the company. You're working for it. You got a simple IRA with a 3% match. You can still do this too. And that's the beautiful thing is across a financial status and across economics, anybody can use these tools to start building their financial future.
Yeah. And I think for a lot of people, this is where it gets probably a bit complicated. I know several listeners that are invested in the market themselves. They do it. They have mutual funds through something like Vanguard or another Fidelity, whatever it is. But this is a great time, and really even before this, because this is a lot to figure out, is to bring in someone like you, right? What does that relationship look like with a financial advisor? What do you like to have? Like, what is the dynamic of a relationship with you? I'm sure there's a lot of heavy lifting at the front end, but what does it look like at that point and beyond?
You're right. There is a lot of heavy lifting at the beginning. It's the whole idea of you measure twice, you cut once. Like you're trying to really get a really solid plan. We know that the plan is going to change. President Eisenhower, when he was General Eisenhower, said that no plan survives first contact with the enemy. And finances is the same way, but you still want to plan and prepare as best you can. And I would just tell people, when you're sitting down with a financial planner, before they present any solutions, they should be asking a ton of questions. My industry, I'm going to pick on my industry. My industry, we prescribe before we diagnose. It'd be like stepping into a doctor's office. They don't even know what you're coming in for, and they're already saying, okay, here's some procedures that I think you'd be interested in. This is a really popular procedure. This is a really popular drug and prescription. You should probably take this. You're like, whoa. You don't even know what I'm coming in here. Like, I'm pretty sure that I don't have uterine cancer. I don't need to worry about menopause, and that's what you're talking about. Like, but you're laughing, Khalil, because it sounds ridiculous, but that's what happens in finance. people step into an office and they're already talking about the financial professional, and they're trying to help. I don't think these are people that are trying to misguide people, but they're so excited about their solutions that they don't listen to the problems. They have no idea what you're trying to build. It'd be like, me walking into Home Depot and these guys are coming up to me telling me, "Oh, this is on sale. You should buy this." And like, guys, I'm just building a fence. I don't need all these other things over here.
Yeah.
You've never asked me what I'm actually trying to create. So your financial professional should be way more interested in you, your goals, what makes you tick, than what they have to offer, at least at first, because there's no way for them to properly prescribe a solution until they understand your problems, your challenges, and your goals. So that's just kind of a broad brush, but something to be really mindful of. And I sometimes I'm guilty of this. Well, I'm jumping the gun. Like, okay, I've got this great idea for you. This is what it should look like. And sometimes I've got to shut up and be quiet, which your listeners like, yeah, dude, we can tell you like to talk. But anyway, but the other side of it is it's coaching. Your investment professional should be a coach as much as a planner, because if you have a great plan, but you're not held accountable to it, you're just like a coach. A good coach doesn't let you do everything you want to do. They work with you to find a compromise between what you need to do and what you're comfortable doing. And sometimes that means asking you to do uncomfortable things for a period of time. So just switching gears a little bit, if we use kind of a diet and exercise metaphor, there's a lot of diets out there. We talk about ingredients, right? Some people are like, you should eat only whole foods. Other people are like, I just live off protein bars. And some people are vegan, and other people are like, well, I'm carnivore. I only eat things that had a mother. And like, it's all over the map. But the number one signifier of success in almost any diet, regardless of what you follow, high carb, low carb, whatever, when you look at these meta studies, which are studies of studies, the number one thread through all these, where people get long-term success, is adherence, is actually sticking to the plan. So Martin, you might have a different plan than me. Khalil, you'll have a different plan than Martin. But if we have a plan that is aligned with our long-term goals, regardless of the various pathways that might get us there, adherence is the number one thing. And just like there's a lot of people probably in this McDonald's line outside that have a diet written out on an app or something like that, they're not following it right now. They're in the McDonald's line instead of being on a treadmill where they're supposed to be. That's how your advisor coach needs to be at. They need to be holding you accountable to the goals and desires and objectives, what you said was important in your life, and seeing, are your choices and behaviors aligned? And we already kind of talked about this with the ambiguity of investments, the market volatility. Guys, it's hard to be invested for a long time. When you're planting your orchard and there's a storm coming in, it's really hard to not want to dig up all your trees, pull them out, pull them into safety. But you got to stay out there. You got to keep planting. And having a coach in your corner saying, I know this is hard. We talked about this. We didn't know when the storm was going to come, but we knew it was going to. We're going to weather this together. Because so many people treat finance like it's an individual thing. We're siloed, and it's uncomfortable to share and talk about, and I get that. But I just believe that finance is a team sport, and the financial professional that you hire should be more concerned with your family's financial future than anybody that doesn't have your last name. And they need to be willing to have tough love. They need to be willing to have difficult conversations with you to hold you accountable to the plan that you both came up with together. And it is something you both came up with together. It shouldn't be something that you're giving your financial planner or order takers, like, here's what this is going to look like. But nor should it be your financial planner just telling you, okay, this is everything you need to do. Shut up and enjoy it. It's a cooperative process. It's a team sport. You got to work on it together.
I just have to throw in, I've been here pretty quiet. Two things real quickly. This is classic. And I don't mean to diminish that you're not innovative, Chad, but I mean, it's classic. It works. It's factual. It's mathematical, and it works. If you do it, it works if you stick with it. I just want to say something else in passing real quick when you're talking about the storm and wanting to pull up your orchard and take it to to the bank and then put it back in later or whatever it is. When I was trading corn, as a commodities trader in Nebraska, if you knew nothing and flipped a coin to go up or down, you had a little less than 50% chance of making money and less because there were transaction costs. At the time I was doing it, if you interjected your intelligence to it, it dropped to 92.8. 8% of the people who traded individual stocks, let's call it, made money, and 92 didn't. Whereas just flip a coin odds were like 49. So, I mean, yeah, everything you've said.
Yeah.
And the hard part is, well, you know the hard part as well or better than I do. There are two things. One, I've always had a hard time if people don't have a vision for what their future, how to train them. They will tell you things because they think they should, but they don't really know. I don't blame them for it, but how can you coach them to do that?
Well, and Martin, along those lines too, it's these are hard things, and I don't take this lightly, but that's why it's so important to have a plan and a vision of your future, because you have to have a vision of what is possible, or else it's really, really hard to stay accountable to the difficult things in the short term. And again, if we go back to that fitness example, if your personal trainer has you on a treadmill at 6 a.m, but you don't believe you can lose weight, you don't believe your cholesterol can go down, you don't believe in what's on the other side of that treadmill, you're going to get off. You're going to fire the trainer. You're going to go back to doing whatever. So if you can connect the challenging choices, the difficult things, like weathering those storms, because you are confident, you have a plan that works, you know that your investments, the ingredients that you have in your financial plan fit your long-term goals, even if they're hard to own right now, it's a little bit easier to stay the course because you're not just focusing on the investments and what they're worth, you're focusing on your long-term financial plan. It's what we talked about at the beginning of our conversation, is pulling yourself out of the present and focusing a little bit more heavily on the future. And you're right, Martin. None of this is what I'm saying. None of this is groundbreaking. Just like writing somebody a postcard to say, man, Khalil, I really appreciate you. I really enjoyed our conversation, and just you're doing a great work. Keep it up. Hang in there, Chad. Really simple, really basic, but nobody does it anymore. And that's why it makes a difference.
Yeah, execution is all that matters.
I've got a coach in Birmingham, Alabama, who was my coach 30 years ago and is again as of a few years ago. I don't ever even see him. I don't talk to him. But he sends me over workouts, and I have to tell you how I did. I would never, I get up and go at 5 a.m. because I don't want to tell him I didn't. Because he goes, where. I mean, he's perfect for me. But yeah, he's the right guy. Other guys probably couldn't do that for me.
How do you work out every morning at 5 a.m.?
4 days a week.
4 days a week. That's awesome.
And I go to Bible study on the other one. So
getting your spiritual workout in.
Weekend.
All right.
Yeah. That was today. Yeah.
All right.
That's good.
Yeah. So my goal is longevity. I'm not trying to look pretty or anything.
Well,
that's behind me.
Martin, how long have you known this coach? How long have you been working with this?
30. Well, really since the mid '80s. So whatever that, more than 30 years.
So
he was my coach at that time.
So you have a bond that goes far beyond just your fitness. And that's why the right fit is super important for a financial professional. Like we're not the best fit for everybody. I get that. Your financial professional should be the right fit, because when the going gets tough, when COVID happens and we had a lot of people lose their jobs, we have worked with a lot of people in the oil industry. Oil was negative. If you guys remember, oil went negative.
Yeah, you had to pay him to take it.
So it was really, really scary. There's no chart or graph or anything I can show somebody that's like, oh no, it's going to be fine. Everybody was scared. Like COVID was crazy. But that's where we had to lean on that relationship capital and lean on that trust. So if you can't sit in the foxhole, the proverbial foxhole, with your financial professional, they're probably not the right person for you. You've got to find that right fit, because you want exactly what Martin's talking about, where, hey, we go back 30 years. I know this person loves me. They care about me. We're in this together. And they love me enough to have a hard conversation with me. They're going to tell me what I need to know, not just what I want to hear. And that goes way beyond fitness and finances. That's in so many areas of your life.
I got to tell you this, even if it doesn't make the cutting room floor, but I have to report how I did. And when I did substandard, which he can decipher, all he does is respond with the word K. Okay.
And you,
I mean, you want to wipe me out, you just, okay. I mean, otherwise, he's great job, or you look good on this. I take some videos and stuff. But yeah, my wife goes, why do you put up with that? And I go, I'm paying him to put up with that.
bingo, there you
And
go.
I am. I pay. Yeah, but
That's awesome.
He is, yeah. Someday you got to
man.
meet him, Khalil. He'll get up here.
Yeah. I think that this is a really good example for us of like, man, I'm not thinking along these lines. I'm doing stuff, but it's haphazard. And just even talking to you, I'm sure that all of our listeners are feeling a little bit clearer of like, man, I need to do that, or this is such good advice, because you're doing this all day, every day. And I think that's a huge benefit. I know that we have the resource where people can find their number on your website. Really cool tool, gives you a lot of clarity, but I know that's just the start, right? I think that people need someone like you in their corner. How can people get in touch with you, Chad? I know that you'll probably, gather some information from them when they find their number, but what's the best way to get started?
VeritasAlaska.com is our website, and you can reach out, tell us what you're needing help with right now. And we were founded here in Alaska. We work with folks all over the United States. So it's Veritas Alaska, but we are nationwide. And just, tell us what we can do to help you, because we realize your listeners are at different spots in their financial journey. Some people might be looking for help with debt elimination and budget. Others are looking for legacy, and we have the team to be able to help anybody where they're at start making progress along those goals. So Veritas Alaska, you can also find us on Instagram. We're veritas.alaska. And then I'm on LinkedIn. Just look at Chad Hufford or Chad Hufford Alaska. I'll pop right up.
Okay. We'll link to all that. We'll link to your website. We'll link to your LinkedIn. And for listeners out there that are curious about price, don't think about price. Just get started. You're going to be able to afford it. Like, go do something now. You can't afford not to do something like this. So whether it's with Chad or somebody that you've been talking to and you're delaying it, go get started. So we talk about less stress, more time, more money. Like, this is one of the biggest things.
And don't
our
forget
greatest
that lily pad. If you start a day late, it's the last day that you lose, not the first one. So.
And I think I mentioned this at the beginning of the episode, kind of bringing it full circle. Our greatest burdens are from work not done. And I know for a lot of people, this is one of the things that's not done on their list. And it's just sitting in the back of their head and they're thinking about it. Just do something now. So, thanks, Chad. It's been a pleasure meeting you, man. I love all the advice you gave. Thank you for your wisdom. And we hope to, hear from you again soon.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here.
You made it to the end of the episode, but before you go, if you found yourself thinking about growing your construction business while listening today, I want to share something with you. It's called our 24 Things to Hiring and Training the Perfect Executive Assistant for Your Construction Business. And it's a free guide that we've created. It's not theory. It's what we actually use to help contractors hire the perfect executive assistant. And really, we help you find ways to delegate over 50% of your current workload and get back 20 hours of your time every single week. You didn't start your construction business to just be doing admin work, to be buried in paperwork and endless admin tasks. This is the guide that shows you exactly how to find and train someone who can actually take all that weight off of your shoulders. So this is a real actionable, great PDF that has templates and processes. It's really, really great. And I want you to check it out, even just to get your feedback and how we can make it even more valuable. But I know that you're gonna love it. The link is in the show notes. Please download it. We'd love to see how much of an impact it makes on you and your business. Thanks for listening to the full episode. Check out the guide. It's free. No reason to hesitate. No reason to wait. Download it now. And before you go, I just want to ask for your gracious subscription to our podcast. So if you have 2 seconds, it means the world to us. Just subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or if you'd like our weekly newsletter delivered to your inbox whenever we release an episode, please subscribe in the show notes. Every week, we're talking about real strategies on how you can grow and build a profitable construction business that runs without you, so you can have less stress, more time, and more money. Click subscribe wherever you listen to the show, and thank you again for checking out The Cashflow Contractor. See you on the next episode.